one, but here. Okay, so to get your scene set up, so basically, like you do with any character, you're gonna go into your folder, extract the folder that you download, obviously. You're gonna get Thor, and then pickers, scenes, source images, all that stuff. You wanna go into scenes, and then you're gonna reference in, so go file, create reference, and make sure you select Thor rig _ V017. Don't do rig body or don't do poses, okay? That's the one you're gonna want. And once you load it in, textures might not be connected, but that's totally fine for this purpose. So you can just have them like this. You can have it light gray or dark gray, whatever you prefer. So let's start creating the setup. So we have to first create the ground, just because we want something that is going to get contacted. So you can see that there. During this process, I highly, and even while you're animating, for this specifically, have your outliner open at all times, because this will help you select the locators that we're going to create, because it's going to be a pain to do it like through the viewport and like looking through controllers and like going through like this kind of mode, okay? So if you go back to 6. So outliner, I'll put it over here so you can see. So first let's create the hammer itself. So if you don't know this already, you can hold shift in the viewport somewhere, right click, and then you get all your basic shapes. So you're going to click on cylinder, and then we're going to try to basically create the handle of the hammer. So stretch it out like this, and make it thinner, stretch it out more. And also for the rig itself, the easiest way for you guys to handle this is putting the character in IK arms, okay? So I believe with Thor, yeah, so if you select the top arm controller here, this one by the shoulder here, there on the side you can see FK IK switch, and you'll just turn that to IK. So it should be set to 1, okay? And also the head just says you want it to follow orient. So this way when you rotate the chest, the head will kind of stay where you posed it, so you won't have to counter animate. That's pretty much it for the rig. So let's keep going with the cylinder setup. And to make this easier for you guys, you can pose your hands kind of in the front of him so you can know like how big you need it to be. Like, it doesn't have to be super perfect, but as long as it looks like his hands can actually grip it, then you're in a good spot. So something like that. And pretty much you want to figure out what so whatever the bottom hand is, that's going to be your secondary hand, and then the top hand is the one that's going to be the main thing you're animating, okay? So whichever you do, just make sure you realize which one is which, okay? And there's no right or wrong, it's totally up to you. And so make sure as you guys create this stuff, make sure you name it in the outliner, so ground. This is going to be useful later. Hammer base. And yeah, basically you want to try to line it up so you can kind of see how big the grip should be. And so I'm basically just trying to match it to one of the hands, because then the other one's just going to connect to it afterwards. And at this point, you don't need to do the hand pose. You just want to make sure that like it's kind of fitting on the palm. Don't worry about the thumb crashing or anything like that. So something like that, where like it looks like the fingers can wrap around. This is probably good enough. And then if you're happy with the size, you can make it longer if you want, shorter. I think probably about this much. Don't make it too short, because we're going to basically have it so that the secondary hand can slide up and down the hammer. So just for like pivoting and that sort of thing. So I think this size should be pretty good. And then so again, shift select, right click, and we're going to just use a cube. And obviously this is a very hacked way of doing modeling, but this works for our purpose here. So make this look more like a hammerhead. Something like that. And yeah, you can make it bigger if you want to, you can make it smaller if you want to, just don't make it too crazy because it might be hard to animate. It might crash easily. And then again, just make sure you name it, good practice. So hammer head. And once you have the pieces, just select both pieces. make sure you send, actually wait, you have to go to modeling, mesh, and combine it. And I think usually it should center pivot. Yeah, so it keeps it in the middle. Now once you have this, which is pretty much what you need, it's going to create this group here. And what we also need is a controller for this. So we're going to go NURBS primitives and then click on circle. And this will basically be our controller for the hammer itself. Okay. And you generally want to have it somewhat in the middle, kind of where the hand is going to be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want it to be noticeable enough that you can see it. And again, you want to call it like hammer geo control. And change the name of this to hammer, because now it's the whole hammer, right? And easily what you can do is just make sure you go, you middle mouse drag in the outliner on the hammer geo onto the hammer geo controller, and now it's parented to that. So now when you select this controller here, now the whole hammer will move, okay? And it will rotate as well. Yeah, question, Manisha. Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can reshare. Yeah, because I'm showing the other monitor, but I'm doing it on that. So, is it not on your screen?
It is, but sometimes I like to go up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just because I have to stop the recording and then like move the screen. Yeah, I'll do that for the next pass though. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, once you have your hammer set up, we're gonna start creating some locators. So basically, you can go create and then locator, and then just click create. So you're gonna have it pop in the outliner here. Now this first one, make sure in your viewport you have locators on. It should be on by default, so don't have to worry about that. And it's going to be automatically selected once you create it, so just drag it to the first hand. So basically you want to get it to in the middle somewhat of the main hand control here, so like the literal IK control itself. Just going to eyeball it. And again, you can press forward to turn on the wireframe so you can see. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but just basically you want it somewhat in the middle of the IK control itself, okay? Now this is going to be the hand controller for the right hand. I believe it's the right hand. Let me make sure. Oh, for the left hand, so left hand controller. Yeah, question.
Will match transfer work?
It might. You can try it. Okay. And yeah, so once it's placed there, totally fine. You can click on it again in the outliner and then hit Control D and to duplicate it. And this one is going to be the left prop controller. Now as we do this, I'll explain everything, but I just want this set up so you guys can have it. So this prop controller, essentially where it's going to go, and this is kind of important, you want to have it basically where the palm is going to be. So basically where your weapon is going to be constrained to, that's kind of the area you want it to be. And this one you can make a little bigger if you want, just so you can kind of see the angle. So you also want to try to match the rotation as best as you can. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect because we are constraining it, but it just helps you visualize it a bit better and kind of makes more sense when you look at it. Just good practice. And again, somewhat there. Just as close as you can, doesn't need to be perfect. There we go. Now some rigs do come with prop controllers on them. Thor is one of them, but I'm showing you how to create one from scratch. So if they don't have one, which a lot of rigs don't, you'll be able to create one on any rig, okay? So this is gonna work on anything you guys wanna animate. Okay, so now that we have our two locators, we have our controller on the weapon. So step one, so if this was a one-handed swing, this is all you would need to have to set up a one-handed constraint system, okay? We're gonna do a two-handed one, so we're just gonna do this first part here. So step one, we basically ultimately want this right hand or this left hand control to control all these locators and also the hammer, okay? So how do we do that? So the first thing we got to do is we want our locators to follow each other through a parenting system. So we want this prop controller to be driven by this hand controller here. So simply just take the prop controller, middle mouse drag, onto the hand controller here. Now it's in a parenting situation here, right? He's been adopted. Next, we need to get, and every time you do a step, make sure you test it out. So if you move both locators now, you can see that the hand controller is moving the prop controller, right? You can just double check that way. Now, we need this left hand to move both locators, right? So how we do that is we select that left hand controller, the IK hand, right? Control click on the left hand control, because that's controlling that. So we're basically making a chain. And once you have both selected, you go to Constraint, option box, just to make sure you have the right settings. So you want to hit Reset Settings, and make sure you want Maintain Offset checked on, okay? And you're going to hit Apply, and now it's going to go blue. So that means now when I move this, the locators move as well. You guys with me so far? Yeah, okay. So that's one hand. So now we have to connect it to the actual hammer itself. And this one's pretty easy. So since we went the other way of having this IK hand controlling the hand control, which controls the prop control, now we just need to control or constrain the prop controller to the weapon controller here. Okay, so same thing. So select the prop controller first, then the geo, so parent-child, right? Hit constrain, and then parent constrain as well. Okay, so now if you move the left hand, it's going to move the hammer with it. And I'll give you a better view here so you can see. So you can see obviously it will stretch off. This is obviously means you're like breaking it, so you want to make sure it's actually following like this. And it'll follow rotation, all that sort of stuff. And the reason why we do it this way, instead of just raw constraining something to the hand directly, is because if you need to make an adjustment for like grip, or for example, like the weapon needs to slide or change positions, now all you have to do is just move this prop controller, and then you can freely pose this as well, like the actual wrist. And then you can still move this around. So that's basically why we do that. Okay, and make sure we want to save. Yeah, question.
Are we animating this in IK?
I would recommend so, yes. Because this rig setup doesn't really work if it's not in IK. You're going to have a lot more issues if you don't. Yeah. Like, it sounds more complicated, but I promise you it will be a lot easier. So that's the one hand setup. So we're going to do the other hand now. This is a bit more complicated, but it's basically the same approach, just a bit backwards. So I'm going to position the hand to kind of where I want it to be. Again, do it as close as you can. Doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, because like I said, we can make adjustments now that we'll have the prop controller, right? You just want it as close as you can, kind of where the palm is going to connect to it. And we need more locators. So you can create another one. And this one will be the right hand controller. So pretty much it's the same positional setup for these other locators. It's just the constraining order that's going to be different, so you guys can just follow the same method. So taking the hand controller, placing it on roughly the middle here, and then you can duplicate it, and then make sure to call it right prop controller. And again, move into the hand. So pretty simple. Now, we actually need one more controller for the weapon itself. So we can actually just duplicate this prop again. So this one we'll call weapon controller. And this was the only one that you'll have that you want to be visible, because you'll be animating it quite a bit. So this one you'll actually position in the center of the weapon as much as you can, and try to have it so it's vertical, like to your alignment of your hammer here. And the reason for that is because this controller, what you're going to be doing with it is translating it up and down, and this is going to make the hand slide up and down the handle, okay? So once you have all these set up, basically now we want to make sure that this weapon controller is going to follow this main weapon controller here, which will then be followed by the IK hand, right? So you're basically going to drag and drop this weapon controller into the hammer group here. So just like that. So now you can double check that it's moving around. You can see the locators are buried in there, right? And then in similar fashion, we're gonna, instead of doing the other way around, so where, actually, hold on, capital R, there we go. So instead of with the other hand, where the IK hand was driving the locators, it's actually gonna be backwards, because this other hand, we want it to kind of be a slave of this other hand here. We don't kind of want it to drive anything really, we just want it to kind of obey, but still work with the movements that we're gonna be animating. So instead of doing the prop controller being a child of the hand, it's going to go the other way around. So the hand controller is going to be a child of the prop. So just going to middle mouse drag and drop it over there like that. So now if you check on the prop controller, you're going to move both locators around. Right? Okay. Was that lightning? That's terrifying. Is Hurricane Milton here? Like, if you guys have been watching the tracker, but like it looks humongous. Oh, it's crazy. All right. So anyway. Yeah, that's crazy.
It looks so sad outside. Depressing.
All right, so the next step in this, so once you have the prop controller driving the hand controller, so we want the hand controller to drive this IK hand. So we select the hand controller here for the right hand, shift select the IK hand. Now instead of doing a full parent constraint, we're actually going to be doing a point constraint. So you can go option box, maintain offset. If you hit reset, it should go, yeah, it would go away. So just make sure you check maintain offset on, and you're going to hit apply. Now the difference between the two, you can probably already tell, but the channel box is not highlighted everywhere, it's only in the translation. So point constraint just means it's only constraining the translation of the object, okay? I don't know if you guys know that already, but. And so now, if I move this prop controller, like the locator itself, it should move the whole hand. So the hand and the IK controller here, okay? Now we're almost there. This is the one more step. So remember that little weapon controller I made? So actually we can make it a little bigger too, just so we can see it. So the last step is basically getting this hand constraint to the locator. Does anyone have any idea how we would do that?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
So the last step is to get this IK hand constraint to this weapon controller so that I can drive it. How would we do that?
I wonder. Constrain it.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So what order? What's the route?
Select the hand control first and then the weapon control.
So basically in constraining systems, whatever you select first, that's going to be the parent that's going to drive the other object. So we don't want that. So you want the opposite. So because this weapon, yeah, so this weapon, yeah, you just had it backwards. It's all right. It's all right. So basically we want this weapon control to drive this IK hand. So since we have the hand already constrained here, so this locator here, so this is what's driving, or sorry, this prop controller is what's driving this whole hand. So that's what we're going to constrain the weapon control to. So we're going to select the weapon control first, then control click on the right prop controller, and then we're going to hit point constraint. And sorry, I had that backwards. We're not supposed to do this constraint with, this is actually, I'll do it backwards. I messed it up. There we go. Yeah, so there we go. So this should move, yeah, so one more. There we go. Okay. So yeah, if you mess up a step, you can just select what's constrained. If you go in your outliner and hit F, it'll actually frame what is constrained. It'll just pop it open like that, and you can just open it up and find that constraint there, that little chain, and then you can just delete it. So it's very easy to go back and redo it. I highly recommend it if you feel like you missed a step or something. Yeah, so now we just have moving the two locators, which is what we want. And we want the hand controller to drive this IK hand. So this one, we do want a parent constraint, not a point constraint. And then business as usual, so weapon controller, that's what we want to control the right hand prop controller. And that's the one we point constraint. So now, when you have all that set up, basically the only controllers you're going to be animating is this weapon control here, because now it's going to slide up and down as you need it. You can translate it this way if you want, but just try to use it for this, because once you've got the position properly, you don't have to really move it in the other axes. And you'll notice that rotation is locked on it. So it's only for translation. That's why we did the parent constraint on the other one and the point constraint this way. Okay. And so basically, once this setup has happened, this secondary hand here, you're only using the weapon controller to move it along here. If you need to do rotations for whatever reason, that's why you have the right hand prop controller. So now you have rotations free, but you notice you can't translate it because it'll just snap back, right? So that's pretty much why we set up everything this way. Any questions so far? Pretty cool, huh? And yeah, it looks messy. And another thing to note too is that when you select everything instead of key, so make sure everything is off except for polygons and controllers, so none. In this case, you'll actually will want your locators on because you want to see that weapon controller, and then you want your curves as well. Oh, and controllers because he is different. Where is it? I'm blind. Controllers. There we go. And so once you have them set up, make sure you turn off polygons as well. You set a key. You're going to break the constraints. So when you set a key on something that's constrained, what ends up happening is that it turns off the blend point, or the blend parent is what it's called. So all you have to do simply is just select the stuff that's constrained. So like the hands, both hands are, or the slave hand here, go down to blend parent, just set it to 1. And you can just go through checking all the locators, making sure that whatever's constrained, you set it to 1. Open up the group as well, double check, set to 1, and then check the hand, and then there you go. And then same with the geo as well, make sure it's set to 1. Cool. And then once you do all that, you can just double check. So basically this is going to now drive the entire hammer, so it's going to follow the other hand. That's why you have it in IK for both of them. And then also this hand, if you need to move it, you're only moving it from this weapon control here. And that's just for like added movement, like when you tighten up your grip or when you slide your grip down, that's what it's going to be for. And this way you have all the control you need, and it's going to be really easy to animate. It is complicated to set up, as you guys just saw, but this is probably the best way currently to do a two-handed setup without any scripts or tools and whatnot. Cool. I know, right? So yeah, once you guys get that set up, make sure you save, and then I'll demo an example of blocking it out.